All right, we're on our last one, part 3 of setting the stage. And I want to just jump right into it. Let's look at the rest. What about Europe? We've talked about the Far East, we've talked about Southeast, we've talked about the Southwest Asian areas, we've talked about the consolidated big empires that have taken place, and we've talked about the New World, mostly controlled by the Western Europe. But what about Europe? What's going on at home? What might be helpful or conducive to this massive change, this great divide where the Western world, Western Europe, is going to dominate in technology and advancements in sciences far faster. I did this again. What's going on with my words? Where the European nations are exceeding and expanding their knowledge, their technology, and moving faster into modernization than the rest of the world. Why? Well, part of it, you got to look at what's going on in the countries during this time. So 15th, 16th centuries, what's happening in Europe? They're very scattered. Look at all the different branches and parts and clumps and groups that are there. This is not what we see today when we look at Europe as a map. There is no Germany. There is not a perfectly consolidated France. A lot of the other little countries in between the Baltic states, these are all sort of like everywhere. There's very little unity among these little sort of like princeling states, et cetera, et cetera. Italy is not even Italy yet. It's all broken up into different countries, different little groupings. There's therefore constant wars and fighting between these little regions. And that's going to actually be beneficial to moving these countries more into a modern type of way of living. So as we look back at our cycle of choices, what situations are many of these European countries facing? That's what we got to look at. Well, one, every European country wants more. They want more. They want more trade. They want more goods and resources. Trade, goods, resources brings money. Everybody wants money. They want might. They want bigger armies. They want bigger navies. They want more power. They want more control. That is normal. Those are the things that are moving. Now, I wanted to ask you a question. Let's go back to this particular one. Look at England. Look at that little bitty island. You see that little bitty island up there? Let me ask you, how much resources do you think you can pull off of that one little chunk of land for several million people? How long do you think you can extract wood, forests to build, and things like that, to fuel your fires, et cetera, et cetera? How long would it take before that land is completely depleted? Can you think about that? Well, what happens in this 17th, 16th centuries is that England comes to the point where they're saying, man, we ain't got nothing left. And they need to change. They need to find other resources. Where do they have to look? Outside of their own territory. Well, look at the other little areas, these other little countries. They all are doing the same thing. They all have limited power, limited might, limited access, limited resources. They want to be big and survive. They want to take care of their own. It's not necessarily greed, but it is self-preservation, which some might say is a good selfishness, so to speak. So all those are present. Well, what kind of problems and opportunities do they have? Well, they have limited resources, as I said. They're constantly at war with one another. They don't have very much money. There's reduced income. Wars are very expensive. And then you have now, in order to capture the trade, to capture that money, that commercial part of life as a nation or people, you have trade wars. Now, not only do you have wars within the countries that are close to your neighbors, you got wars all over the globe, wherever your ships are going. But those are all problems. But the opportunity is really in trade. It's the ability to get the resources and exchange and grow. That's what they're looking for. So they are balancing problems. Here's an opportunity. Does taking a risk to go get the opportunities, to fight for the opportunities, to make solutions and choices that will gain us the opportunities, will that outweigh the costs of loss of life? Maybe we can survive on our own natural resources. Maybe we can actually learn how to fight better, and we will be able to fight our neighbors and get them out of our area. Maybe we can build bigger walls and they won't be able to get by. So they're balancing, they're weighing these choices or these options, and then they're going to come up with well, what can we do? What are we going to do now? And that's what makes Europe, that little tiny piece of land compared to Russia or some of these bigger dynasties or empires. That particular area, since they're not united, they're not one empire, they're just little bitty pieces. Since that's the way it's going to go, they're going to have to figure out what they're going to do. So here's a hint. What are they going to do? They send off Christopher Columbus. And Christopher Columbus goes out and discovers the New World. So Old World, very tiny, limited spaces, limited resources, lots of fighting amongst one another, lots of hate and fight amongst your neighbors, so to speak. But look at the rest of the West. All that territory. And it's just lots and lots and lots of resources. It just needs to have somebody go out there and grab it, claim it, right? Because that's the mentality of the Western world at this time. And so they do. So in the early 1700s, you have trade in the South. Look at what we have going on. Everything in purple is Spain. The little lime kind of green where Brazil is right now, that is Portugal. And then you have that little bitty top up there, which is the British territory, the colonies in that particular area. Europe is turning westward. They're sort of pausing that moving east, moving towards India, China, Far East, et cetera, et cetera. And they're looking for the opportunities and putting a lot of investment in how do we get the West? How do we get the New World? How do we make our fortunes there? But again, just like in the Far East in India, the settlements in the New World are very coastal. There's not much penetration into the interior of the land. So you need to have people that can actually get in there. You need to have bigger armies to be able to get in there and get those resources. So right now, at this time, they're just kind of pecking off stuff off the coasts. Same thing happens in the British settlements in the United States, or what will become the United States. Very much on the coast, very restrictive, just that little sliver of the eastern border. There's not much going beyond the Appalachian Mountains, nothing more beyond the Appalachian Mountains going westward. And so Europe is going to start facing some challenges. Well, how do we take advantage of these areas? We have all these riverways, we have these lands, what do we do with them and how do we get to them? And again, that's going to sort of spark innovation, creativity, invention, and we're going to see more need driving the progress, driving the motivation of what's going on. You can take a look at this map here of the Caribbean. It's much the same thing. You have different types of areas. You have the British who are in the Jamaica area, that particular area there. You have the French in Saint-Domingue, which will become Haiti. And again, we'll have the Haitian uprising later on. We have the Dutch sort of in the more of the south, and then the French in the little islands along the outside as well. And that's all part of the trade. You end up swinging things back and forth. You send people in, they take the land, they cultivate the land, they take the resources, and they send it back home. And that's all part of it. Well, this brings up new situations because if you're going to do this and you're going to do it quickly, you're going to do it abundantly and efficiently, you need laborers. Well, where are you going to get laborers? You're going to have your own people from your own country ship over and try to do that? Or you're going to get the natives that are already living here to do that? Or you're going to find another people group that are going to be brought over? And we know where this is going. But this also leads to new problems. New problems as we find solutions to these original problems. For instance, the African slave trade. That was a choice that was made to solve a problem, but it brought up a new situation. Now you have humans, real people, being mistreated. You have segregation of people in hierarchies where you have slaves that are nothing more than property in many areas. They're expendable. They're nothing more than a horse or a mule in the minds of many people. Not in all, but in many. And so that's going to bring up some new ideas. As the western or the eastern border of North America, those British territories, as they start to develop their own property and land and industries, are they going to just continue to throw stuff back at England and let England have its dominance over them? Or are they going to say at some point, hey, this is not really serving us anymore the way we like. We need to perhaps revolt, and we have an American Revolution. These are types of things that are going to constantly go again and again and again throughout history. And that circumstance, that setting of the stage is what's going to create this global explosion, this supernova of change that's going to take place. And it's already set up. Every place has its own reasons for either fighting or taking or whatever. People want change, and others want to keep the change out. And so what happens as a result is what we're going to look at probably for the next, at least until Christmas. So hold on to your saddle here, because we're going to be going pretty fast. So that's it. We'll see you next week.